So something that is really important when you are eco-printing, whether you're working with or without traditional powdered mordants, and it's safety in the way that you work. So today I had actually hoped to be eco-printing and setting up my cooker in the garage outside. I was going to work with my propane burner, but it was so windy that as I was opening and closing the garage door, I was concerned that the gas, the propane, was going to flicker too much. It might actually blow out and it could cause an accident. I didn't want to have that gas coming out. So I moved inside here to my kitchen. But when I'm working in the kitchen, that brings other issues to play. So I'm sure you can see here how steamy this is now. So there are a couple of issues. The first thing I would say from this perspective is you need to be absolutely sure that you have windows open or a door open or a fan on. You want to ventilate well if you're going to eco-print inside. When you lift the lid off any pot, this particular pot is called a fish kettle, you need to be very careful that you don't burn your arm. And I'm using a piece of old towel to actually handle this because this is an old antique fish kettle and this handle gets extremely hot. And in the excitement of eco-printing, it's very, very easy to just make a simple mistake. So I would never touch that without having a towel. Another thing I need to be very careful of when I'm using this specific fish kettle is the handle here, this longer handle which I would carry the fish kettle with. It's got a groove or a curve here, and I suspect that's because this would have been suspended potentially over an open fire. Whereas many of the vintage fish kettles or the modern ones, they have a handle at both ends. So I would never ever lift this pot up until the pot liquid had totally cooled after an eco-printing session. And then I would very carefully carry this pot by putting my hand on either end and lifting it up. Because I've discovered if I try and carry it with liquid in it from this curve here, it's unbalanced and the liquid could pour out on top of me. So do be very, very careful. You can give yourself an incredibly bad burn if you aren't careful with your pot. Either a steam burn or pot liquid falling on you or on your feet. And for that reason, although you can't see them now, I actually have safety work boots on with steel toe caps. And I always recommend that you wear really good quality footwear when you're eco-printing and that you don't wear flip-flops or sandals. Just think about the safety aspect of working with your equipment. So in a kitchen, ventilation, definitely don't touch the hot pot without a towel. Be very careful when you're releasing steam and then carefully lift the lid off. And in relation to this pot as well, I need to be careful that I don't drip any water from the cast iron pot onto my natural timber work surfaces, because the tannin in the timber will have a reaction with the iron from the pot and I will dye the wooden surfaces here and they will need to be stripped back and sanded. So just be very careful that you don't allow any drips from cast iron or even an aluminium pot with rust water onto your timber surfaces, or you're going to change the color of them. Now I have another tip for you, and that's about in relation to the tongs or whatever you're using to take bundles out of the pot. I actually find that these big fire tongs are fantastic because they're long, they don't really get too hot in my hand, although clearly I'm not going to leave them sitting on top of the saucepan or they would. But I find these really excellent. They're better than barbecue tongs. They're virtually indestructible and I can really clamp hard when I'm lifting pieces from the pot. So those are just a few safety tips for when you're processing your bundles. Be conscious all the time. It's an exciting technique, eco-printing, but you need to be careful. For regular tips, advice and chats from my eco printing and wet felting studio, why not subscribe to my channel and hit the like button now.